New Jersey became a state over 230 years ago, and over that time had seen its share of tragedies. Among them, who could forget the famous Hindenburg disaster that killed 36 people in 1937? And of course the sad story of the Lindbergh kidnapping that stole the nation's headlines for nearly 3 years. On a smaller scale, but still just as tragic, is the case of the Winslow Junction Train Derailment of 1922. Today we're going to take a quick look at the accident, and then take a trip out to the area to see what remains, on this episode of Destination Anywhere. It's the early 1920s. The Prohibition era in the United States is in its infancy. But just because alcohol was illegal didn't mean the good times had stopped. With the rise of the speakeasy, or underground bar, drinkers were still able to get their fix all across the country. One of the foremost destinations for this illicit drinking was Atlantic City, New Jersey. As portrayed in the HBO hit Boardwalk Empire, Atlantic City was a haven for tourists to drink and gamble illegally with little worry for punishment. As the seaside destination boomed, rail transportation to the area was critical. With Philadelphia and New York City both within short commuting distance, competition arose between rail companies eager to carry the tourists. Because of its opportune location between both metropolitan areas and Atlantic City, Winslow Junction became one of the busiest rail intersections in the world. One of the most successful rail establishments to make the Philadelphia to AC commute through Winslow was the Atlantic City Railroad, part of the Reading Company. Possessing some of the fastest trains in the world, it would be speed itself that would lead to disaster. On the night of July 2nd, 1922, the number 33 train named the Owl would be on its way from Camden to Atlantic City when tragedy would strike. At around 11:30 p.m., traveling at an estimated speed of 90 miles per hour, the Owl would go through an erroneously opened switch at Winslow Junction, causing a derailment. The high speed would send the 6-car train plummeting 30 feet down an embankment. By the time the sun came up the next day, there would be 7 dead and 89 injured. Ultimately, the Interstate Commerce Commission would lay the blame on the conductor for failing to see signals that the upcoming line was diverted. Regardless of who was at fault, it was a tragic night in railroad history. Despite the accident, Winslow continued to be a critical northeast travel hub, and in 1934, the Winslow Interlocking Tower was built to control the direction of all incoming trains. As the years went by and personal travel methods changed, the once critical junction was no longer a necessity. By 1983, with no use for passenger travel here, Winslow Junction ceased operation. These days, there's still plenty to see in the area of Winslow Junction, including these old train cars. While they're awesome to look at, make sure not to get too close as they're peppered with posted signs. A few hundred yards from the old cars sits the interlocking tower and the main junction. Not far from the tower is where the accident took place. After studying the ICC report as well as their diagram, it's still hard for me to tell conclusively where the derailed train landed when it fell down the embankment. After some investigation and considering the track layout is different today, my best guess is the wreck happened around this area. If anyone knows more, feel free to let me know in the comments. Almost 40 years after closing, the remains of one of the most important rail lines in the world sit here reflecting history. While the heyday of this railroad might be gone, it's not forgotten. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Destination Anywhere. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to the Mickey Shuffle on YouTube.